Hello again. I'm not sure if this is the first video that you're watching or what, but if it is the first video, my name's Jerry Lavoie, Gerard Lavoie, you can call me Jerry, Gerard, whatever. Anyhow, the Geographic Information Systems course, right? I'm teaching it at Sioux College, and I am recording YouTube videos because I think it's important for me to be able to provide out-of-class support. And what this video is for is it is a video of the PowerPoint presentation that I'm doing in class, January, whatever it is, the 11th, I think, 2022. So this is an introductory PowerPoint just to go through, well, geographic information systems. It's not super comprehensive, it's an introductory kind of thing where I want to introduce the course, I want to introduce the software, and introduce myself if you haven't had me as a teacher before. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, I'm not going to keep my face up on screen for the whole time because I'd rather you have a look at, you know, what's in behind me here, up wherever. I'm new to the recording of things. Anyways, so I am going to turn that off, hopefully. Yeah, and I'm gonna work through this PowerPoint. Okay, so let's do that. Right, what are we doing today? Today we are going to introduce GIS. We're going to get started in the lab. We're going to look at required resources. We're going to log into accounts. I'm going to deal with some data organization stuff. I'm going to talk a little bit about OneDrive. I'm really hoping that each of you understand what OneDrive is and have even accessed your OneDrive space. I'm curious, I'm not exactly sure how much space you have available on OneDrive at the college, but I know staff each get 1 terabyte, which is more than enough for this course. Okay. Esri Learning Resources. Esri is the company that provides the software. The software is called ArcGIS Pro. It's a newer piece of software, and here at Sioux College we finally have evolved to the point where, you know, we are teaching software that is up with the times, so to speak. And I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I've been working in GIS now for about 20 years, and, you know, ArcGIS Pro, compared to the software that I grew up, or that I learned back in the mid-90s, is so much better. Of course, you have to make friends with it. We're all going to have to make friends with ArcGIS Pro, and it's my job to facilitate that and to provide you with, you know, what you need to get good at using GIS, because it's a pretty important part of the tools and skills you need to be successful in your careers in natural resources. Okay, whether you're in forestry or fish and wildlife or parks and outdoor rec or law or natural environment, right? Anyhow, yeah, we're also going to talk about the interface and a little bit about ArcGIS Online as well. So let's get to it, and let's have some fun. Right, so what is GIS? Essentially, right, what is it? Anytime you combine information with a spatial coordinate or location, you have the opportunity to have an information system, a geospatial or geographic information system. And GIS is everywhere, right? It consists of, well, it's a system, right? And what is that system? Well, there's people involved. Obviously, the people that are creating the data sets or working with the data sets or viewing the data sets or editing the data sets, right? There's a bunch of procedures. I'm talking about this in a way that's very broad because GIS is so huge. You know, the software we're going to be working with today, right? It's part of the system, obviously. You need data. If you don't have data to work with, well, you're just playing around with nothing. And funny enough, in our first week, we're not really going to work with much data at all. And hardware, you need computers. You need computers, you need the internet, right? So anyways, there's that. Information about objects, right? things have a location, right? You can pin down a location in just a straight XY, or you can think about elevation, which would be Z. You can think about rotation as well, right? Roll, pitch, yaw, if you're dealing with aerial imagery or aerial acquisition of things. That's your phi, omega, and kappa. But really, positional information is really important stuff. And we'll start with just XY, right? X and Y. Lat and long, latitude, longitude, right? You can also deal with times and dates, right? Events in GIS as well, which is pretty cool. So you tie all of these things together, right? And you keep the information locked together. And you keep it together by having some sort of a visual representation of the data that is linked to the attributes or the information about the features that are being displayed. It's pretty cool stuff. So what do we do in GIS, or what kind of GIS data exists, or what industries does GIS involve, or where do we use GIS? It's everywhere. And now here there's just like a wheel, or the world, the globe is in the center, and outwards from the center there's all these different layers or pieces of data that all tie together with each other. Relationships between data sets is another important concept to think about. So there's a bunch of words up here. I could list them out or read them out to you, but I think you get the idea, right? Working in natural resources, you're going to be exposed to data set after data set, and it's immense, right? If you're in the forestry program, you got to think about things like forest management units in Ontario, right? If we're thinking about a regional or local scale, you can think about fire, right? Insects and pathogens, diseases, right, that affect our forest health. You got to think about soils, right? There's so many things. You got to think about the people that visit forested areas, whether they're protected or whether they're private areas or whether they're commercial areas, right? The kind of industries that are involved, transportation networks to get resources in and out of areas that are being harvested. And I'm just speaking in terms of forestry. It's just, there's administrative boundaries and so on. So anyways, yeah, all of that stuff, right? And how do we keep track of all of it? Well, we use GIS and GIS software. There are some really basic, fundamental ways of displaying GIS data, right? You can display these things called vectors, right? And when I think of vectors, I always think of the three main types, right? Points, lines, and polygons. There are other feature types, but these are the three main ones. Points, lines, and polygons, right? So points can, depending on your scale, could be, pointing out intersections or cities or hydrants or even trees, right? Individual trees. They're discrete. It's an XY point. There's only one XY coordinate involved, right? Lines are a little bit more complex, right? You're going to have at least two, because if you have a line, you've got a start and an end, and you need an XY coordinate for the start of the line, and every time that line changes direction, there's a new XY coordinate that's being recorded, and that line itself it's a feature, and it could be maybe a river or a road, or you get the idea. Polygons are enclosed shapes. You need a minimum of 3 XY coordinates to enclose a shape, right? Every time there's a vertex, there's an XY coordinate. And if it's enclosed, well, then you can calculate things like area and so on. So lakes, administrative boundaries like provinces or management units, or you get the idea. So points, lines, and polygons, vector data, these are drawings that are displayed, right? So you can take the data and you can bring it into the software and visualize it, right? Turn it into a layer so that you can actually load it up into your program and see what it looks like. And it'll be a scale drawing, right? It'll be to scale, which is really cool to think about. There's coordinate systems. There's a lot to talk about here, but we can't talk about all of it at once. We've got to go step by step. Right, so vector data, right? Think about it. Spatial representations of real-world features. And there's also tabular information that's connected to those features, right? Features and attributes. You got to think about it in terms of that. It's not an information system if all you have is pictures or spatial representations of things. There needs to be an information component, right? So think about tabular information being a part of this as well. Raster data is a little bit different, right? I was just talking about vectors, points, lines, and polygons. Rasters are images, and we live in a world where, you know, images are everywhere. And, you know, whether it be satellite imagery, drone imagery, aerial imagery, or maybe you can represent a raster that is showing you things like elevation or temperature, right? So we're going to be talking about these continuous representations of the real world on layers called raster layers as well, and we will be working with them in our course. In fact, you know, we're going to pull some rasters up today. We're going to pull some rasterized and tiled backdrops. These things are called base maps. We'll pull them into our ArcGIS Pro in order to work with them. So cool stuff. You know, so rasters themselves, they are layers of pixels. A pixel is a single element of a picture, and those elements of pictures have values, and think of those as kind of like the attributes, right? So rows and columns of pixels on layers of images, you know, that's what makes our rasters informative, right? So you can have classes of pixels, you know, where you're displaying things like elevation and temperature and so on. But you can also have images, and with images, I kind of split things up between black and white and color. If you have a black and white image, it's just a single layer, and this you see here underneath the pixel values heading, you can see that one of them is black and white, and all of those values in there, well, if you look closely, the lower values are darker. So they're representing brightness values, right? And when you combine multiple layers together, layers of pixels, like all of the blue, green, and red pixels, and you combine them together, you can get a colorized picture. Well, that's what you do get. It goes way beyond that, but here we are, just introducing things and setting the starting block, or whatever you want to call it. So Esri Canada is the company that is the software provider. They're not the only GIS software provider out there. There are a lot of others, but at Sioux College we use Esri software, ArcGIS Pro. We also connect to ArcGIS Online, and in fact we have a department. We have a Sioux College GIS department, which is an online component. Let me see if I can pull that up. I have a web browser here somewhere. Maybe. Oh my goodness, where is it? Right here. Oh, I know why. So here's LMS. I'm going to log in. Oh, I'm already logged in pretty much. Here's our Sault Ste. Marie or Sioux College GIS department, and actually this is where you would download the software and so on. And in our work, you know, we're going to be working inside of a group. For this class, this video is meant for the forestry group, right? So I created a forestry technician group, and in fact, I could go here and I could look at all the members, and they're all listed, okay? So I don't want to show that very quickly, but everybody here and everybody watching this video, eventually you're going to have to log in to ArcGIS. See, I'm logged in currently. Here's my username right here, and I've got a profile and so on. Everybody here has to do that in order to work with the software this semester, and you'll be able to use that same profile for the entire duration of your college experience. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, hopefully right here, and talk a little bit more. ArcGIS Pro is the software that we're going to be using for visualizing the software. And we also have ArcGIS Hub, which is kind of neat. That's where you can get data sets from online portals. You can create story maps, which is really cool stuff. We will eventually make it there. They have other applications, apps, right? Called Drone to Map is one that's kind of neat, where you can capture drone imagery and, well, map it out. The Living Atlas is really interesting as well, because it's where you can pull web maps, base maps, feature layers, all kinds of stuff from ArcGIS Online's Living Atlas. It's basically online data that you can bring in. You don't have to have all the data saved on your computer at all times, right? So that's a beauty thing. The field maps, right? Say you're using a device off-site and you're collecting data in the field, right? It's a great application as well. We've got a Survey 123 app, and also ArcGIS Earth. You may not have heard of ArcGIS Earth, but I bet you you've heard of Google Earth. Well, ArcGIS Earth is super cool. It's just like Google Earth, but you can bring in your own layers. You don't just have to be stuck working with KMLs, which is pretty fantastic. And the navigation controls are pretty cool too. So, anyways, in this PowerPoint, if you were to look, I've got this here, but I also have links, right? So if you wanted to, you're going to have a copy of this PDF, and you'll be able to get it on LMS, and you can pull it up, and you can go and you can follow these links that'll bring you to the websites, right? So here's ArcGIS Pro's website. You can see all of the things there. It's pretty fancy. I'm not here to talk about the website. I'm here to talk about ArcGIS, right? So if I go back, for instance, ArcGIS Earth is right here. If you wanted to learn about it, guess what? It's free. You can download it on your machine, just like you can download ArcGIS Pro on your machines at home. It's pretty awesome to play around with and use. So anyways, the links, I use links quite often in my PowerPoints, but I also use links in my Word documents or my tutorials, because I want you to be able to have access to online resources. When you're learning, you're going to have all kinds of questions, and I want you to have the opportunity to get answers to those questions if you're doing this, if you're listening to this from at home, right? So anyways, there's that. Esri Canada is part of just Esri. Esri is actually an American company from the United States, based out of Redlands, California, and they have some pretty amazing resources available for users or people that have accounts set up, right? You have an account set up through Sioux College, and you have access to a lot of resources, not just knowledge base articles and help lists, but there's an Esri community out there, right? You can ask questions to the community. There are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that use ArcGIS Pro on a regular basis every day. So if you're stuck, you can go to the help, you can go to these blogs, you can go to the community, you can just log in, type your question, and hopefully somebody will answer you right away, right? So think of the Esri resources kind of like as your textbook for this course. You can go and you can buy textbooks for ArcGIS Pro, right? You want to go and drop $150, you can do that. I'm not telling you not to. There's a lot of great resources out there, but Esri Canada, or just Esri in general, they update ArcGIS Pro on a monthly basis, and it's difficult because every time they update ArcGIS, all the resources change online, right? So it's hard for people that are writing textbooks to keep current. So you buy one textbook, and then before you even get halfway done, all of the materials from within it, it's out of date. So that's why I personally have always used just online resources that are published directly by Esri, and it's helpful. So if you wanted to go and I don't know, do I have any links here? I don't. I will show you where there are some links in this video. I'm just going through the PowerPoint. So anyhow, so ArcGIS also has a YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel that's just for this class, but I will be referring to maybe some videos that could be helpful. And their YouTube channel is pretty awesome. Let me see, do I have a link for it? Somewhere, maybe? Somewhere? Maybe? Oh yeah, I do. So if you go to YouTube, ArcGIS on YouTube is pretty awesome, right? They've got videos and playlists and so on. You can look at all of the different playlists, and it's organized fairly well. So it's a wonderful thing. And of course, this right here at the bottom, what it is it is the ArcGIS Pro Help screen, and it's kind of like your starting point, right? You can access this from within the software, you can access this on the web, and when you get here, it's pretty amazing because you start off, and if you start right by clicking on Help itself, you can find out about everything, right? So, because I'm not going to be able to, there's not enough time for me to bring you through every single aspect of every single tool and every single operation. ArcGIS is so much larger than just this course, right? This is an introduction course. So I do want to just start off by letting everybody know that these resources are available, and if you, as a student, work independently and you take interest in using GIS to learn more about the field that you've chosen to go into, not only are you going to open up a lot of doors by having good GIS knowledge and skills, but you're going to learn a lot more about your industry just by using the data that's collected in your industry. It's amazing what you can learn by just looking at the layers and the data sets and the attributes that are collected by field technicians, whether you're in forestry, fish and wildlife, and so on, right? So anyways, the way the Arc Pro Help works is on the left-hand side, you've got, all of these headings, and you can open up a heading like for maps and scenes, and you can go in and learn about all these things. So if you want to learn about, layers themselves, right? It's going to pop up another screen, and you can see that they expand like accordions. And on the right-hand side, there'll be shortcuts, with headings that allow you to, not have to read every single word on the page. You might be looking for something very specific, right? Anyways, ArcGIS Help is pretty awesome. So when you're opening up ArcGIS for the first time, right, you got to create a project. Now, you may be provided with a project for a specific task, right, as an assignment in this course, but you also need to know how to open a project and create a new project. And where do you save it? Where is it typically saved? Where's the default location? And how does that all work in a computer lab at Sioux College, right? Because the Sioux College computers, they reset, and whenever they're rebooted, they reset to like a default frozen state, and it's like it doesn't know you anymore, right? So if you're working on a personal machine, it's quite different. You can set things up in a very customized way, but you need to understand how to access your projects. And the best thing to do is create a folder for each project that you create and put that folder somewhere on your computer that makes sense. And what I'm suggesting is that you use OneDrive, so that not only in the computer labs at Sioux College, but also at home on your personal machines, you have access to your projects and the data and so on, right? So anyways, this is the splash screen. You can see up here, I'm logged in, right? So when you're using ArcGIS, you have to be logged in. It's really important. And when I'm evaluating stuff that comes into the Dropbox, right, I'm always looking to check your screenshots. You'll be providing screenshots and answering questions and all of that, but I'm always going to be checking to make sure that you were logged in when you did the work. If you weren't logged in when you did the work, I can't give you the grades, right? So this is something that you might see as being a little bit new, but it is something that is really important to this course. And we need to be able to track user usage, so that we know how much time you're spending. We know how committed you are, right, to gaining these skills. when you have an ArcMap project open, I have one open here that's called World Data Compilation. So over the Christmas holidays, I'm a huge nerd. You can make fun of me all you want, but basically I was just compiling data, just finding data. I even tried to like hack into some different countries' data sets, not hack in, but just get access to. I was able to get a lot for the United States and Canada and a little bit from Mexico as well, but tons of world data sets as well, and there's some interesting ones out there. But what I want to show you is that when you have ArcGIS Pro open, this is what it looks like, right? You're going to have a section in the middle where you have a map, right? And then you're also going to have different panes available to you. Now, I've already done a video on working with panes and view windows and the ribbon and so on, and you can watch that. But this is what it looks like when you got a bunch of vector data in. And I think there's a base map in there as well that's covering all of the ocean in the background. Pretty cool to look at. You have multiple map windows or multiple map views open. Each one of them individually is its own data frame, right? So we're going to talk about that. You can see I've got a topo base map, a world data frame that has a bunch of vector data in it, and I've got an imagery base map, right? So there's vectors and rasters involved here, and you can see that they're all listed in catalog, which is a pane on the left hand side, and you can see that this one is showing all the contents of my project. And this project has 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 maps, and I have 3 of them open. Okay. The contents pane, where do you manage the data that's in the map view window, right? So you can see here we've got a contents pane, and it would be basically helping you to list what's in your project, right? If you have no maps open at all, well, you can still see what's in your project. But if you have a map open and there's data in it being shown as layers, right, you can list that data. It's kind of like a table of contents in a book, right? You can list that data by a whole bunch of different in a whole bunch of different ways, right? So you can list by drawing order, and that helps you to not have one layer hiding another layer, right? Because when they all sit on top of each other, right? So there's a drawing order involved. You can list by source. So say you have data in your map and you don't know where it is coming from on your computer, right? You can switch over to the data source tab in the table of contents pane, and you can see where the data is. And you can see here I have 2 different data sources listed. So everything that's in the map is actually coming from one folder, which is nice. You want to work that way. You want to keep your data organized. And then there's also one that's coming from a service, an ArcGIS Online service. That's the base map. It's showing that that it's hosted by an external source. No big deal. The internet handles all of the back end of it, and all you have to do is put it in your map and understand where it's coming from, right? You can also list things by selection, by labeling, and so on. But those concepts are a little bit far off, or a little out of reach for us for today, so let me keep moving on. Where does all this data come from? Right? So the catalog pane is the other side of it. It's, it'll list things that are in your project, but it'll also list all of the things that are on your computer or even on the internet if you have a connection available, right? So there's a project itself that has all of the stuff that's in the project, but then there's also this portal, right? And this is ArcGIS Online. And the catalog panes, there's 2 of them on the left there that are showing the things that are in a project, right? And you can see that the project tab itself, when it's activated in the catalog pane, you can see what's in your project. But if you click on the portal tab, it'll show you what's available online, right? So you can click on this thing here called the Living Atlas, and you can even type in search terms and filter things out by all kinds of different categories, whether they're vector tiles or base maps or so on, right? You can do all of that. There's also an Arc catalog interface that you can open up. And it's kind of neat because you can get more information about layers, whether they're coming from the portal or whether they're coming from your computer or whatever. You can preview these things before you bring them into the project, right? So we're going to learn about all of that. And all of a sudden, like if I go back one slide here, you're like, whoa, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are all these windows, right? How do you manage all of those windows? But you don't need to have them all open at the same time. You can just open them as you need them. And part of this course, the introductory weeks is showing you just how to find what you need, right? And so on. So you can also geoprocess data. This gets a little bit beyond our scope for the day, but I do want to show you that there is a geoprocessing pane out there as well, and you can do all kinds of things with GIS data. Right? When they're brought in as feature layers in the map, you can work with them directly. They don't even have to be in a map in order to work with them. You can actually work with them externally, right? And just connect to them and bring them in and only bring in the results into your map, which is pretty cool too. So you can do analysis work, you can do conversion work, you can just manage data, converting it is pretty cool. But and then there's spatial. There's a lot of tools available, hundreds and hundreds of tools. We'll get to using hopefully more than a dozen different ones, but we'll see how the weeks play out and where we're at. Okay. So publishing and sharing maps. Now, Heath Bishop, he's an amazing teacher. He has come to join us in the Natural Resources Department, and what I have up on screen right now are a few different maps that were created in the past. Like some of them are more than 10 years old, but these are maps that were created by students in the post-grad GIS program. And we are in the process of redeveloping that program and renewing all of the courses and the materials and the curriculum and resetting it for the new way. Okay, so anyhow, this one here is pretty interesting. We've got a landscape tool to predict wildlife vehicle collisions on provincial roads. So the maps that I'm showing you here, they are all meant to be kind of natural resources related, right? So here's deer harvesting, or deer harvest on St. Joe's, based on the Sioux College Deer Check Station. So if you were in Fish and Wildlife, that you take part in the deer check, right? You don't even have to be in Fish and Wildlife to take part. You can just volunteer for the deer check, right? So here's some data that's collected, and it's visualized in a published map, right? And these things can be shared to groups. They can be shared as public documents online using Esri's ArcGIS Pro software. All of these maps were created with ArcMap, which is a previous version of the software. So here's one, solar projects or project sites on Manitoulin Island, just showing you where the best solar sites are. Pretty cool to think about things in that term. Here's a forestry one, harvest locations near Racine Lake in the Martel Forest. When I think of forest resource inventory data, quite often I think about a spaghetti factory of line work, because there are so many different forested types and they're divided up by so many different attributes like age and height and species composition and vertical structure and horizontal structure and crown closure and all of these things, right? Soil moisture regimes and ecosites, and the list goes on. And really, how do you figure out what you're going to harvest, and how do you present your data in such a way that you're not presenting a spaghetti factory, right? Anyways, I made this map a while ago. This is for the Central Algoma Forest or Freshwater Coalition. This particular one is just the backdrop, kind of like a base map that was created. And what we did was we overlaid bicycle routes and a lot of like farmers markets and tourist attractions, parks and things like that, to make it a little bit more interactive. And it was a lot of fun to create. So yeah, this is pretty much it with regards to the PowerPoint. And I'm gonna hop out of it And I'm actually going to go over and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we are doing in the first week of the course, right? So you can see here we've got this document, and it's available on LMS. It's actually available on Teams. It's available through SharePoint. I've made it available in as many places as I can think of, right? And everything's set up the same. All the folders are all the same. And when we're in class, we're going to talk about how to find everything and use everything. But in this tutorial, right, this video is meant to be the second video, and in the first video we went through using the ribbon interface and interacting with panes and windows. What I'm going to do is I might as well throw it at the end. There's another learning activity here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, and this one is just about accessing ArcGIS Pro Help resources. So what I'm doing here is just showing you that when you're a new user, you got to develop and hone your skills. I talked a little bit about it earlier in the PowerPoint, but it's a good idea to go through this process. So, use this part, this activity number 2, and kind of do it independently. And, there are links you can click on that'll bring you right to the ArcGIS Help screen, right? This one over here, right, where we were just playing around. And it's to get you to use it. And another way to get you to use it is actually to assign a quiz, an LMS quiz, where you're going to have to use the ArcGIS Pro Help. And you're going to have to do the activities that are in that PDF, the Getting to Know ArcGIS Pro document, in order to do well on the quiz, right? So, anyways, so in this learning activity number 2, you can see there's a search example here, right? And here's a topic and a description to the link, or a description of the resource and a link to it, right? So just get yourself immersed in the terminology of ArcGIS Pro, right? What is catalog? When I say catalog, what are we talking about? Well, I'm talking about one of the panes where you can access data. What are the contents, right? The contents, it's another pane where you can access the features and layers that are inserted into a map, right, that is in your project, right? So 2 different things. What is a bookmark? Well, that comes later. We are going to be working with bookmarks today, and we're also going to be working with some base maps in the next learning activity. So all of that is there, and really this isn't something that I can do with you, but if you want, I can go back to that help website and just say, okay, here's ArcGIS Pro Help right here, right? How do you build a project? There is so much you can learn about, and it's my job to facilitate that, right? So it's my job to try to focus and show you the path through all of these documents and resources, because you're going to find that there are so many of them that it can be difficult to stay focused, and that is a challenge for me. And I'm going to do my best to make it work for you. Okay, this video right now is on my YouTube channel. This is my YouTube channel right here, and this introductory activity number 1 is listed so far, and I'm going to be uploading this video that I'm doing right now next, and it's going to sit in a playlist, right? And you're going to be able to access these videos outside of class, right? So if you're watching this video and you're still listening, you've already heard me, because I did this in class on Tuesday afternoon when you have me, right? So anyways, that is it for today. And again, the Getting to Know ArcGIS Pro resource is pretty cool. In the next video, I'm going to be doing a learning activity where we're going to play around with some base maps and adding them to maps. We're going to look at ArcGIS online, we're going to look at the contents pane, and we're going to play around with some navigation tools, right? And I'll talk about scale, I'm going to talk about a lot of things, right? So I really hope that you're getting excited to become GIS experts, and yeah, let's keep going. Right on. Talk to you on the next one. Oh wait, should I put my camera on? Wave by. How do I do that? Oh, here I am. Okay, bye.